it's me again. So today has been interesting in that after I finished the previous video where I was like defining this is my Enneagram type, my head kept going back and forth into like some of the things that I should probably be careful about. And well, I ended up doing a lot of things, with like arts and crafts. None of it worked out, unfortunately. Like I spent a lot of time and effort into just trying to make some combinations and they didn't work out, which happens sometimes. So, just that but I was kind of like thinking about me more deeply and like what that means and what that means for me to have certain issues and certain points of improvement, some areas of improvement. And basically, as I mentioned before, I was looking at myself more roundly. Okay, I decided I'm gonna do the Enneagram type 17. I'm gonna read the whole thing. I don't know if I'm gonna do type 4 because I'm distancing myself from type 5, but I think they can type 7. I could do type 4, particularly because I do see some similarities, particularly when I'm like more introspective, because up to right now, up to now, basically I have look at these different types and they have felt like that I felt connected to them more or less for a variety of different reasons. And I think that there's a part of it that's just normal, like you are a human being, there's like a lot of diversity in our existence, but there's also ultimately like we're kind of like all worried about like the same things, different versions of the same thing sometimes. But like it's kind of like you have like 9 personality types. So let's say there's like 9 things that you can be fearful of, and they're all like interlapping with each other. They're not necessarily like as independent as I guess some people might want them to be. And I don't mind, honestly, like if I feel that like I'm kind of like split into different personality types, although like they do say that you have to kind of like pick one, pick a line. You can still relate to everything else, but like one is going to be the main one. And that's pretty much what I did. I picked the one out of the two that could definitely be me. And it is weird because I like the malleability of like just being like, is there this one or this one? And both of these things are equally plausible for me. And right now, I mean, like that picked a lane is more like this is the number one I have to be thinking about. But then there's all the other things that I can still can still be issues for me in the long run. I'm not planning on doing like type 2, 1 and 9, 1, 2 and 9, because they are not very much like me. But like the type 7 for sure I'll be doing, type 4 and type 6, like there is something there. There's also type 3, but like I don't know, type 3 is just it's just very discouraging. I could say I guess like it's just I only see negatives. I've only seen negatives so far of type 3. That doesn't really make me want to identify with that type. But generally speaking, I already didn't, except for what I mentioned. There's like one thing about each type so far that I've read. I haven't read the types themselves, but I have read them in the compatibility and the misidentification once, and then I've kind of like seen some things from some types that I'm like, what, like I kind of like relate to this particular thing here, and be a little characteristic, a little state of yearning. It can be state of suffering. It can be negative, or a little bit like less positive. But they're all there and they all make sense. And ultimately, as I mentioned before, the goal of this little personality type thing is to kind of like improve yourself and to improve your life. So like I could benefit from reading everything, but there's some that are very much not like me, so I'm really not inclined. But type 7, at very least I'm gonna do it. And I'm curious because I'm kind of stable these days. So I think one of the reasons why when it came to deciding the personality type, whether it's going to be 5 or 8, I feel confident in these choices because right now I'm in a really stable point. So in a very stable place. So mentally speaking. So I can make so the kind of like the estimations that I make, they're kind of like accurate. They're not just me randomly thinking something, not randomly, but because I'm depressed or manic. But it does involve my normal being involves my ADHD, which is something that it was an interesting journey for me to get to this point because when I was a kid, I think when you're a kid, like ADHD is like the most visible it can be, unless like you're an adult and you're looking for like what it looks like when you're an adult. But I think that it is the stereotypes And like the more cliche things about it, when you're a teenager, when you're a kid, mostly, and then as a teenager, things, they change a little bit, but you're still in that phase. And then as you grow older, things are still there, so nothing really changes regarding that. But I don't know, it's just that it's easier to see certain versions of ADHD, because people are different, and there are different like modes that you can be putting yourself in, that you can find yourself in. And when you are a kid, like, it's easier for you to just spot some of those patterns. And then, so basically what I'm trying to say is that when I was younger, I did have some of like these stereotypical things that you expect from ADHD kids, like particularly regarding like energy and vivacity. I was very active, and I was like all over the place, and I was sometimes it's all over the place, involved me jumping from thing to thing, and that is another another symptom right there. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when I try to look at myself and who I am in this journey I've been kind of like taking lately, where I'm trying to see who I am without me being bipolar, which has been kind of hard, because I've been basically going from mania to depression ad nauseum for the past, not even a few years, the past many years of my life. It's been like jumping from one point to another. And sometimes when you're like in those states, you don't always see who you are as a person. Like, you need to go back, and for many years before even like the ADHD, maybe bipolar started to manifest, I had trauma, and like that trauma really changed the way that I saw myself, the way that I interacted with the world, the way that I did things as a whole. So for me to just see like who I am, in general, without specific things interfering, I had to look back even before that. And like, that is the version of myself that I'm like, that right now I'm like, this is me. It's that version that was very lively and was very excited about existing, about trying things, and about being alive, and wanted like to try all the things. And there's more to me as a kid, and I think it's easier for me to remember these things as time passes, because then I kind of like I start peeling it out, that version of who I am, because there's certain things that like they come to the forefront. So for example, me having a lot of energy and being very excited, very excitable, very truthful, yeah, that's the word, very excitable, it's truthful. That is something that like everybody could see without you know me for 2 seconds, you could see that that was the case. Although, to be fair, if you take this to the mania side of things, like if you meet me when I'm manic, and then you're going to have some opinions about who I am, and those opinions are going to be a little more exaggerated, because that's also something that I have to take in mind, to keep in mind, to take into account, take into consideration. It is that like sometimes mania for me, because I'm more excitable, like mania, it has to be even higher, the threshold for it to be considered mania, because for some people, if you're like lower on energy, if your energy levels are lower, then we start at this point, and then we start working out from here. But like mine is very much here, so basically it would take a little bit more for me to get diagnosed with mania. But like that is, which is not necessarily it, which is kind of like a good thing for me overall, because there's been this kind of like incessant fear that I had that like I was getting manic. And on one hand, like, I don't really care that much that if I'm getting manic, which is bad, because there's like a lot of like bad things that happen when you're manic. But as far as like like when I'm getting depressed, we have the fear that I want to end it all. So it is, like, mania is also dangerous, because I'm still having risky behaviors, and I am like my filters, they're like at the all-time low, like so whenever I say and doing things, I having like my behaviors being riskier, and that can be dangerous for me. But it's like danger, I am putting myself in danger, but it's pretty much like extreme danger when it comes to like depression. It's like I am putting myself in danger directly, like I am doing the thing that is being bad for me. And sometimes it is the case with mania, but like I don't know how to properly explain it. But one of them, like, they're both dangerous, but one of them is like more intentionally so. It's not, the other is more like reckless. It's just you lose track of you lose track. You lose track of reality. You you lose track of reality, and well, the situations that can be risky for you, and then they can pose some type of threat or danger. But anyways, back to what I wanted to talk about, which is it's not that I wanted to talk about this specifically, but it is a thing that's on my mind. It's basically like, what is my normal self? And my normal self, I think I can see a lot of 7 in it, personality type 7. So I think that's pretty much why I want to do the reading, because but even the first time I read it, I kind of like I designated different parts of me as being different points in time. I think I designated type 4 as being kind of like depression, type 7 was my ADHD, and like type 8 was like more like mania. Actually, yeah, I don't remember exactly how I designated things, but I do remember kind of just, yeah, I remember I remember 7 specifically. And I think it's because like I like mania and depression, which are states of mind that I can have, and they're very much like me. Any version of myself that I have to consider, I have to take into account mental illness. Neurodivergence, on the other hand, is something that it is very much, it's like ingrained into who you are. It's not like these states of mind that I can have, which is the case of depression and mania. I mean, in some cases for me, like I keep going from one to the other, like ad nauseum, as I mentioned. So it's kind of hard for me to see myself out of that context. But ideally, it's for me, what we want here, for me to be stable, for me to be kind of like quote unquote normal. And for that to happen, I need to be more. I need to be more distant from these extremes. I need to see this as extremes, because they are. But sometimes you're so used to being on the extremes that like they don't really feel like extreme anymore. And because maybe like the behaviors, they no longer feel extreme because you're so used to them. But they're still at the end of the day, they're still the extremities that I have to kind of like try and avoid being in. Of course, that is easier said than done, because I never really am intentionally manic or depressed, and that's not what I want to be. I mean, when I'm depressed, I guess like being manic, it seems a little bit like a treat in comparison. So I guess I can kind of like want that in that way. But when I'm normal, when I'm like mentally, when I'm like realistically stable, then I don't usually want either side of that coin. I want to be very much in the middle, not really dipping, but like that is what it feels like. Like you just tossing a coin, and then like it is pretty much stopping at like the very middle, and then you just like, it's kind of like tipping to the left or to the right, and you're just worried because which one is going to be. When what we want is like neither of those. I want neither situation at all. But once again, I'm not doubling. I'm trying really hard to concentrate, but it's kind of hard these days. Specifically, right now, I don't know, like it's been a bit of a mess. But I'm going to, I want to go back to what I was saying, which is the whole thinking about the whole personality type, and how for the past couple weeks. I mean, it's not just the past couple of weeks. Like some months ago, I was I started reading into the Enneagram again. And when I started making the reading, the last time, I was very much like still split between 5 and 8. And then right now, I have more certainty of like who I am. Exactly, because like I'm talking a lot about it. Sometimes when you bring in different perspectives, different from different personalities, you can feel like maybe you're more split towards like more things. But so far, like it is all very much, it's working out. Basically, I'm thinking about I'm considering type 5, and I'm like still this one is in second place. And also like it's something interesting that came to mind is that like, because I also read the Briggs-Myers personality type, which is, I think the Briggs-Myers one, it is a little bit more skewed. Like they tried a little bit harder to make it a thing. So there's some personalities like they're in the middle that, from what I gather, they're kind of bullshit. They just do it so they can have like 16 types. But of course people still identify with them, so there's still some truth to that, because ultimately it is the truth that you're placing into the thing. But like the INTP, which is the one that I thought I was going to change, although every time I do this I feel like it might change, because it feels like I changed as a person, but like there's I think different things. So being INTP with a type 5 from 3 and 4, it felt like very full circle, and then type 8 is a little like different. I think from once like it feels a little bit more extroverted in some ways, and type 5 more extroverted than type 5, yes. But yeah, but anyways, now I still the same from like the Myers-Briggs types. And honestly, I ended up like I thought when I started it was going to be a bigger thing than it was. As far as like me recording a video talking about it, but they have put everything behind the paywall right now, so I'm not going to be investing that money. But I do have like the videos from like the other times in the past that I did it, and I kind of and oh my god, I'm really struggling concentrating. I don't know if this is a bad sign. This could be a really bad sign that I am getting that like I'm getting kind of like ahead of myself, not ahead of myself, but that my thoughts, they're getting ahead of me. And something that can happen when I'm manic. Sometimes I'm like, I'm both simultaneously very much there, like very in the moment, but like I feel sometimes that some things that take in the back seat in my mind, some parts of my brain. So yeah, so I'm a little worried, but I would just be observing for now. But back to what I was saying. So the Myers-Briggs personality type ended up being like not much, but it was part of this journey, and I guess like I can have that as kind of like as a consolation, because I feel like INTP and type 5, they are very like intrinsic, probably for the same for ENTP as well, but I feel like the ENTP could be more type 8 as well. So I don't know, it might be like a whole introversion extroversion thing. As I said before, like I'm very much an introvert, like I need, because I'm using like the definition will give you that it means that like you're recharging by being alone. So like that is very much me. That really resembles just how I am, how I've always been, even as a kid, even when I was super cheerful and super full of energy, and so like all over the place, I was still an introvert. I was, but not shy, because I feel like sometimes people they mix up things. They think that introversion and shyness is the same thing. Well, shyness is just social anxiety, right? And I'm not a socially anxious person, period, right now. There's been certain points in time where there was a certain, like anxiety, but it was never, to my detriment. Like I never not did something because, of that. I usually was just like, yeah, whatever, I'm not pushing through it. But I kind of like, I do understand. Also, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, there were so many, things that I wanted to keep, so many, part of my, it's kind of like I was keeping this facade, and it was not really fake, because that's pretty much me in the future. That was the version I was trying to push, that's who I wanted to be, and it made sense that with my trajectory I was going to get to that point, but I wasn't there yet. I was a teenager, so there's lots of room for things to not work out, for things to get a little messy, and for me to learn from the experiences I was having. I needed to be a teenager in order for me to get to the point that I wanted, for me to get to that version of myself, because it was only by going through something that I was going to learn. But yeah, so but the point is that I had this facade that I kept. It was not realistic to myself at that point in time. I mean, it is realistic to who I am right now. The version of myself, the person that I am today. Like I'm very much in terms of like that. What I'm saying, like I'm very much I am that version now. So I did become that person, even though some of the things I wanted to be, they end up not panning out and they didn't work out. But like I think that in terms of like how I interact with the world, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking in a hypothetical way or in a theoretical way, how I would deal with like a situation, this situation X, Y, or Z. I'm talking about like the things I have to do daily, on a daily basis, the person who I have to be. And yeah, like some of the things that used to be issues for me when I was a teenager, they're not anymore, and they haven't been for a while. I think I'm full of confidence, I guess, for myself. I know who I am, I know what I'm about, I know what I want. I mean, what I want, I mean, like, generally speaking, because there's some specifics about that they haven't really been carved out yet, but that's okay. But I kind of like, I know what I want in a certain way. As I said, I'm kind of like in a really good mentally healthy, stable position right now. So that is kind of like I have some more clarity of, you know, like the future, what it's going to be when I'm in this particular positioning. You know, so I don't know some of these specifics where I want to kind of where I want to accomplish, but I do know some of like the general things, you know, some of the generalities, you know, like what I want. I don't know exactly how I'm going to accomplish something, but I do know what some of the what's are. And that is as good as it gets sometimes, you know, like that is as and sometimes that is all that you need, you know, like knowing, like you let, you know, the how happen as you know, you're living your life and things are happening, you know, and then you figure out how you're going to, you know, how you're going to get to the what. Particularly because what I've kind of like come to realize is that there's a certain malleability to what I want, you know, because what I want is more subjective in turn. So like I want, for example, to be contented, to feel fulfilled, to be, you know, realized as a person, you know. And I kind of and you know, for that end, like there's so many different ways that I can approach those things, and I don't really have to necessarily get into specifics because I'm trying. I think as long as I'm trying, I'm making an effort to, you know, keep going, to keep moving. It's all good. I don't have to know exactly what, because I'm always trying something, you know. I'm trying, you know, somewhat, and then I'm learning that maybe that's not the case. So for example, with college, like I'm going to be, you know, pursuing I'm going to, this next semester is going to be my last semester studying engineering. Not only this specific engineering that I'm studying, which is transportation engineering, but engineering in general. I mean, actually, I'm saying this like there's like a 95% chance that I'm going to like going in a different direction. You know, there is a 5% chance that, you know, I'm gonna find something, you know, fulfilling in what I have available, which might be a different engineering. But you know, I'm looking forward to like other things. I have other priorities, and I have like, you know, one way that I wanted to play this, but I'm realistic, so there is like a 50% chance that that's going to work out. So, but if that doesn't work out, there are other, you know, there's plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, up to plan Z, because, you know, there's just so many things that I can, you know, try as well, because ultimately it's not really about as that there are different ways for me to achieve the different house for me to achieve, you know, these what's that are important to me. But you know, it is important that I've already figured out, you know, that I want to do, for example, something meaningful. And when I say meaningful, I mean meaningful to me. You know, I say this because something that can be meaningful to, you know, because there are many meaningful things that you can do as a person, and many of them, they do not appeal to me. I'm not going to go out there and do that, and that's okay, you know, because there are people who are going to do that. So it has to be something that means something, you know, to me, something, you know. It can be a thousand different things, or maybe what I do for school is not going to be the source of meaningfulness in my life. Maybe it's going to be my writing, which has historically always been the case. So like maybe I just need, you know, to get a job that will support me financially, so that I can, you know, focus on the things that are more meaningful, that can actually aggregate to my life, that actually make me feel fulfilled and, you know, realized as a person. And I think this might be, you know, I'm honestly counting on this to be the way that things are happening, not because I don't think that I can find something meaningful in academia that will, you know, really kind of like do something for me. It's just that I've tried so many already, so many things, so many courses, so many paths, and they haven't really panned out the way I had wanted them to. So I'm not creating expectations for the future, but that doesn't mean that things are not going to happen. So, but I expect pretty much why I'm probably excited. I'm excited by starting over and trying something new. I still have to go through this semester, but you know, like I have my whole life ahead of it, and I'm not feeling old anymore, which is pretty cool and pretty good, pretty cool. Because feeling old has historically not been something really good for my brain, because it has gotten me to, you know, feel like, you know, the end is near and that there's no point in trying or starting new things. Well, that's not where I am mentally today, right now. I am actually really excited about changing things and changing the pace of things, and I feel confident and confident that something's going to come out of it, even if it's just me realizing that this is not the path for me to take. Maybe next year I'll be taking, because the reason why I'll be changing, not the reason why, but I'll be changing courses. For that, I'm going to be taking the exam that, you know, teenagers take at the end of high school to kind of like get a position, get you know, like enrolled into colleges in general. It's just that there's one particular system that is for public universities, and this is the one I'm going for because I do not have the money to to get some of other things to work. But you know, it's okay. Like so far I haven't had the money and things have worked out, you know, better than expected. You know, so there's that. But you know, the point I'm trying to make here is that I'm feeling good about myself and about the world and about my place in it, and not feeling overwhelmed by, you know, like reality, and by not by, because sometimes the reality as a whole is a lot, so you feel overwhelmed by that. But more specifically, you can feel overwhelmed by certain aspects of it. It can feel like you are, you know, in a losing battle, and that is something historically I have felt, and it was really bad for my head because then it makes me want to give up. But right now, you know, like this medication combo I'm taking right now is working pretty well, so much so that I have a perspective of the future. You know, I want to keep trying. I'm not feeling, you know, like giving up and just, or giving in to, you know, all this self pity. And I mean, it's not just self pity, a lot of this is just regular pity. But yeah, but you know, that's kind of like where I wanted, I think where I wanted to get by looking through the personality types tests and tests for personality types. I mean, I didn't take a test, this was more of a, you know, open-ended thing that I just read into, which is like, yeah, this is close to me. The first time I did it was a test, and it was good because it kind of like sent me into like certain directions, and that is as good as it gets sometimes. I'm saying that too much, but you know, it is true. Sometimes like you need a little guidance. You don't need like a guidance to take you all the way, but you just need you to kind of like point in a general direction, and from there you can, you know, start making your way and, you know, figuring things out. But yeah, but what I want to say is that by kind of like analyzing these personality types and seeing where I'm at, I've been able to, you know, do a little, you know, reading into like where I am at mentally right now and where I've been lately, and you know, considering like historically where I've been, and it's pretty good right now. You know, I'm in a really good place mentally, and you know, in a place where I am planning for the future and I am doing things, you know, that have to do with the future, and I'm not really, you know, like for example 30. I mentioned before, I wasn't feeling sure, I wasn't really confident that I was going to get to 30, not that I wanted to get to 30. And right now, 30 and 30, you know, I'm turning 28 first, but you know, like a couple of years to 30, it is not overwhelming. I'm doing pretty well. Oh, my dad's calling, we're probably gonna go. Bye.